Thank you very much, Adam. Grateful recovered addict. The doctor said you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I have never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you. Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. He said to the doctor, "Is there no exception?" "Yes," replied the doctor, "there is. Exception once in a while. Alcoholics have had what are called vital spiritual experiences."
Lovely. Thanks ever so much for that to Adam. I would now like to welcome Kate into the room, please.
Thank you so much, Becky. Thank you, everyone doing service tonight. This meeting is really, really important to me. It's my home group. And it's always been there, you know, through the good times and the rough. Yeah, I'm really, really grateful to be sat here. Recently there's been a lot of stuff happen, life stuff happen, and I've recently lost quite a lot of confidence because I don't know whether it's necessarily me isolating, but sometimes when life stuff happens, because I know the importance of the message and the reasons why that we're here, you know, to carry them a message of hope, sometimes I can get into my head that I don't actually have a message of hope to give. And I also think that, you know, I get an over sense of importance sometimes, and I need to be humbled like that. So thank you for, you know, asking me to share and asking me to do service tonight. I love that reading. It's a story out of the Big Book when one of us, you know, an addict an alcoholic goes to one of the most important psychiatrists in the world. He was mates with Freud, you know, that's how huge he was. And even he was like, I can't help you. And there's a part where it says, you know, the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. And I remember the first time that I read that part as well, I actually felt that. Oh my God, this book isn't going to help me. And then it goes on, you know, and Dr. Young, you know, describes that here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have what we call vital spiritual experiences. And for me, that's what the 12 steps did. That's been my experience. And I need a vital spiritual experience because nothing else worked. I picked up from an early age. I had all of the characteristics of an absolute lunatic sober. So it was only a matter of time before, you know, I picked up, and it was literally the thing that was going to solve all of my problems. And I went, you know, I dived into it. And at a very young age, I kind of blasted into the free party scene, and I started legal raving kind of all over the country. And I remember I was coming off a 4 or 5 day bender, and I was about 17. I was driving home, and I remember this I was at this point where I couldn't stop, and it was no longer working, and I couldn't live with drugs and alcohol anymore, but I just couldn't live without it. And it was that point where this desperation, and it's probably the first time that I tried to kill myself because I couldn't find a way out of my addiction. I just couldn't escape it. And I had a spiritual experience. And for me, spiritual experiences is definitely different from a spiritual awakening. And I don't know whether I can articulate it. There's probably a lot of people that can articulate the miracle better than I. But there are certain points in my drinking and using where I would have these moments. And when I was in this car, you know, 17, I was just taking my seatbelt off, and I put my foot down on the accelerator heading for the ditch. And this flash of my brother's face was just there, and it was enough to make me go, ah, and kind of swerve. And, you know, I'd like to say that I then hop, skipped and jumped into CA and I lived happily ever after. But it really wasn't like that. And I didn't really know that there was that this existed. So if you're here, well done. You're here, and you're probably here for a reason. My drinking and using, so that was 17 years old. By 19, I'd been cuckooed by county lines, and I was drug running, and I'd been evicted, and I was living in this squat house with a very abusive boyfriend. And I remember just looking around, and I sniffed absolutely everything, ticked everything, I'd sold everything, and it was literally, I thought it was rock bottom. And I just remember looking around thinking, I will never let this happen again. This is like, I can't do this anymore. But my thinking was, and my whole life has been like that, my thinking was, my good idea is, and I tried to fix everything around me externally. So it was the house that was the problem, so I went and got myself a new house. It was the boyfriend was the problem, so I went and got a new boyfriend. It was the car I drove. It was the fact that, I had a baby instead of go to uni, so I took me and my baby to uni, and I tried every single thing in my thinking to try and just, number one, justify my drinking and using, but number two, it was as if, was constantly trying to convince myself why I wasn't an addict. And unfortunately, the more that I progressed, and the more that I was awarded, I got my degree, became an award-winning playwright, and all of these great things were happening to me, which were, again, another excuse as to why I wasn't meant to be here. I'm not an addict because, and it was always like that. And I tried to come into recovery at 25. I did everything wrong, did everything that they told me not to do. So, right, Kate, go and get yourself a women's sponsor. So I got a male sponsor. Right, you have to be completely abstinent. So I was doing drugs on the weekend. I remember taking my big book to Boomtown and being sat there on a lot of fucking dizzle, and and saying to all, I was reading the book and I was saying to all my friends, look, I'm sober, isn't it great? And my friends were like, what the fuck are you on about, Kate? Like, you're fucked, absolutely fucked. And it was never stopping that was the problem. And again, sometimes I could stop for a week, sometimes 2 weeks, and again, that'll be another reason why I didn't have a problem. Well, I'm not like you because I'm not drinking it, in the mornings. I'm not like you because, I'm not selling my TV anymore to drink and use. And I remember my last drinking day and using day, I tried to score drugs off a woman who I taught her daughter at school, and she was a social worker. But that was my thinking. Well, we're drinking together. She should probably get me Coke, So I'm she just told me that she was a social worker, and she said, "Oh, well, don't you teach my daughter at high school?" I was like, yeah. Next moment, can you find me some Coke? The insanity, the absolute insanity. And anyway, she couldn't find me Coke, whatever. And I got back to a friend's house. We managed to pick up, and it was just around the corner from where I had squatted all of those years ago. And I just remember looking around, and I was in a house just down the road, doing exactly the same thing with exactly the same behaviour. Draining all of my resources, draining all of my money, and something just fucking broke inside me when I realised that I was in exactly the same place. I was in exactly the same place as when I was 17. I couldn't find my way out of addiction. When I was 19, when I was homeless, when I was, and all of these different things, and something just broke inside me. And I remember looking up and actually saying out loud, like, this is the last time, isn't it? It was just like this calm, like, this is the last time. I cannot, I need help. And I just knew it was either I was going to go and kill myself. I wasn't too far away from the Orwell Bridge. I was just, plan my route there. Or I can go back to the fellowship and I can really do this with all the desperation of a drowning woman. And that's what I did. And I remember, I think it was my second meeting, actually. I always say it's my first meeting, but it was my second meeting that I knew the first woman that I saw, I had to make my sponsor, because that's what people have been telling me over and over again that I needed to do. So I walked up to a woman and I asked her to sponsor me. I didn't know her. She hadn't told me her story, nothing. I just walked up to her. Will you be my sponsor? She said, yes, of course. And we embarked on this like amazing adventure. And I before now, I've always I haven't knocked my first year, but I haven't appreciated that first year, because I don't know whether I would have, because I was so undisciplined. I still wanted to do everything my way, even after doing my step 3, where you're supposed to give your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand. There were still things that I just could not let go. Still things that I have to be, the boss. I have to be a super mum. I have to be a super teacher. I just could never have that blind faith and just give that away. And I think that first year, even though it was really painful because we went through the 12 steps in 12 months, it definitely taught me how I would like, how I prefer to take people through now. And I remember, I'd been a year sober and things weren't going right. I was still, I'd never done a step 10. I'd never done inventory. Didn't know what a nightly review was. I wasn't really taking suggestions. I was telling people that I was meditating, that I was doing yoga, and I fucking weren't. And, all of those lies started creeping in. And my mate, who was in CA, kept absolutely pestering me to go to these meetings. And by that time we were in lockdown, and I was dying. I was working the steps backwards. I wasn't helping others. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't praying. I wasn't, doing my inventory. I wasn't making amends. And I was slowly making my way back through the 12. And one day it just caught me right, and I just thought, I might as well go to this bloody meeting he keeps banging on about. And I got on, there was like over 100 people in, and people were just on fire with this stuff, like so much so I actually thought that all the people, all these little faces I was looking for all of their paraphernalia. I was like, they're definitely still doing it. They're definitely still there's no way you can be that happy and be sober. I'd never seen it before. Never. I'd never seen like happy people. What are you on about? And I even said to my mate, like, are you sure like people aren't on drugs still in these rooms? And he was like, absolutely not. Like, just keep coming, Kate. And I did. Like, CA had this, I don't know, just this beam of light, this miracle, this, this fourth dimension people were talking about that I just thought was a myth. I just thought, oh, it's just some sentence in the book that doesn't, make sense to me. And I found a new sponsor, somebody who took me through the book. I think we got through the book within 45 days. And I just knew, like, from before halfway through, I just knew that this was the way to do it for me. This was the complete psychic change that it explained in that extract that we read before, and I could feel it working, and I could feel it happening, and I was happy, and it really was. And I was, I then went out and I started helping others and taking people through the work. But for me, I started saying yes to everything. I had loads of service. I had 8 sponsees all in the work at the same time. I was, I'm a single parent. I'm a full-time teacher. which is a fucking nuts job anyway. And I burnt myself out spiritually. You know, one day this poor sponsee of mine, she dared say no to me, and I just fucking exploded at her. And I've never heard from her again. And if I ever do, you know, I would, you know, I'm willing to make amends to that poor woman. You know, hopefully she's still in the rooms. But I made a serious error in saying yes to everything, and all of these things kind of taught me, you know, that I'm still a people pleaser. You know, I still want to make people happy no matter what. And, you know, I couldn't continue to do that. And so I do have a lot of, you know, I do have more boundaries now than I ever did. And I think that at this point in my recovery, it's really important to do that. So yeah, I just kind of threw myself into this work. And I've learned some hard lessons, you know. I've always been one of those people that I had to learn myself and not through anyone else, unfortunately. You know, it's not been. I've had some absolutely incredible times in recovery where, you know, I've been promoted because I'm a good worker now, and I'm a trusted employee. You know, people trust me with children. It's crazy. You know, the bonds that I have with my son, with my family, are second to none. I mean, I've had, like, last summer was just incredible. You know, I was performing at Camp Vention, then I performed at another convention. I'm in lots of convention service this year, and I'm really, really lucky to have that opportunity, you know, to be of service. But, you know, life has shown up in quite an intense way recently, and every single thing inside me will always want to just go, no, less. I need to do less. Yeah, that's or run. You know, it was only a couple of weeks ago, I turned up at my home group meeting with my bags packed. I literally had a suitcase in my boot about to run. I was going to take my baby and I was going to run. And it just took one home group member who just sat next to me and just said, you know, Kate, don't let him drive you out. And it was just that one sentence. And that's why home groups are so important. Like, if you're new, find a group that you really connect with and stick around, stay, do service, because those people will grow to know you. And those will be the people that, when the chips are fucking down, you know, and when life is calling uncle, like, they will be there, you know. Unity is seriously important. And, you know, it saved my life. And so, instead of, like, going with all of these things, all of these voices in my head that are telling me to run, isolate, don't pick up the phone, fuck off everyone, don't go to meetings, but turn your camera off, don't go to the face-to-face meeting, go to, you know, I have to constantly ignore that and do the opposite. So I have to call more people. I have to, you know, make sure that I turn up and that I do my service no matter how I feel. And I'm pretty sure that's why I'm still here. I'm pretty sure, you know, I'm, God willing, next month will be 4 years. And this year's been really tough, I'm not going to lie. But in amongst that, amazing things have happened. Incredible things. Like, my recovery has been solid because I worked so hard at it. You guys, like, I worked so hard at my recovery, because ultimately, if I don't have recovery, everything else falls to fucking pieces. It really does. Like, my day can, like, so I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I go in to take my son to my mum's so he could go to school. Then I go to school. I'm at my desk by 7 a.m. I do a whole day's work, you know, teaching, planning, printing, the amount of printing, you know, Ofsted, meetings, briefing, safeguarding, blah blah. Then I go home, I pick up my son, and then I get home, then I make meals, then I have sponsee calls, then I have a meeting, then I go to bed. So for me, where is God in that? I have to work hard at keeping God in during the day by doing very, very simple actions. When I say I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, the reason why I wake up is because that first half hour is dedicated every single day to connecting with my higher power. I have to have that half an hour. It is crucial for my recovery, because it then allows me to go about my day. And when I have a moment's pause, I think of God. When I have a moment's pause, I do my inventory. When I have, I've done so many like bush calls with sponsees in the middle of the day, or cupboard praying. I'm a big fan of cupboard praying, because ultimately that's why we're here, because for me, if I sat in front of Dr. Carl Jung, he would tell me the same thing. No psychiatrist, no therapist, no doctor, no mum, no son could sit in front of me and try and work out a way that I didn't use. I have to have a spiritual experience. It's paramount to me surviving. And so I have to work. That is number one. I have to work at it. And I still have the desperation of a drowning woman today. If my sponsor rang me up and said, Kate, you need to put your son into care, you need to leave your flat, you need to leave absolutely everything behind, give up your car, give up your career, because otherwise you're going to relapse, I would do it. I wouldn't even ask why, because I am still as desperate today as I was back when I had that complete fucking snap inside me, because I know there's no other life than this for me. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking because I don't know how long I've been rambling for, and I've been kind of dying of flu. So I don't know whether any of that made sense. But if you're new in the room, we can't guarantee that you will never have to, that you'll never have a bad day again. But I can guarantee that if you do this stuff, you can get through those times sober. I promise you, as long as you do what we've done and do what we do. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.